Hi, welcome to my channel if you're new, welcome back if you're a subscriber. Today I'm going to be talking about some recent horror releases or horror releases that are going to be coming out in this month. And I'm so excited because I have a list of 14 books that I want to talk to you about. So before we get into the video though, make sure you're subscribed to my channel and hit that bell so you're notified when I post. I noticed in my analytics that not everybody who watches my videos is subscribed, so it would mean a lot if you hit subscribe and supported my channel. So let's back it up to March and talk about some releases that came out in March that look really awesome. And the first book I want to talk about is Gallant, and this is by V.E. Schwab. Olivia has grown up in Maryland's school for girls, and all she has of her mother's past is a journal. But this journal seems to unravel into madness. She receives a letter though inviting her to come home to Gallant, and she ends up showing up, but no one there seems to have been expecting her. But she doesn't want to leave, and it's actually the first place that has really ever felt like home. Even though she sees ghouls haunting the hallways, she still doesn't want to leave. Olivia knows that Gallant is hiding secrets, and she's determined to find out what they are. One day, she crosses a ruined wall and finds herself in a place that isn't Gallant, but is. The manor is crumbling, the ghouls are solid, and there's a mysterious figure that rules over all. Now she learns what may have unraveled generations of her family, and where her father may have come from. Olivia has always wanted to belong somewhere, but will she take her place as prior, protecting our world against the master of the house? Or will she take her place beside him? So this sounds like it has fantasy undertones, but also some horror mixed in. So the next book I want to talk about is a book I actually own, and I'll grab it from here. It is Sundial by Catriona, and this one came out on the 1st as well. Also, this cover art is absolutely breathtaking. I think it's so beautiful, and I really enjoyed The Last House on Needless Street by this author. It's the kind of book where you don't know what's going on the whole time until everything comes together at the end, and it sounds like this is sort of written in that similar style as well. All Rob has ever wanted was a normal life, and she almost has one. She lives in a nice suburban home, and she has children and a husband. Rob is scared for her daughter Callie though, who collects tiny bones and whispers to imaginary friends. And she sees the darkness in her daughter. She decides to take Callie back to her childhood home Sundial, where she will have to make a terrible decision. Callie is worried about her mother, Rob begins looking at her strangely, and speaks of past secrets. And Callie fears that only one of them will make it out of Sundial alive. So this kind of sounds like it will be an isolated atmosphere, which I absolutely love in my thriller and horror books. And also it seems like family dynamics will play a large role in this, and that there's something very mysterious going on. And like I said before, I just think Catriona has a very beautiful style of writing, and I just find it really unique and enjoyable. So I'm really looking forward to picking this one up. So the Book of Living Secrets, which came out on March 8th, is by Madeleine Roux. Adele and Connie are best friends, and they have many differences, but one thing they have in common is their love for a gothic romance novel called Moira. When the friends are tempted by a mysterious stranger to enter the book, they don't suspect it will work, but suddenly they're inside the book and living with the familiar characters they know so well. It's not at all how they remembered it though. The world has been turned upside down. The lavish balls and star-crossed lovers are now interlaced with unspeakable horrors. They soon realize that something dark is lurking in the world, and they will have to rewrite their own arcs to escape the nightmare. So this whole book within a book thing is something I love as a trope in books. This actually reminds me of Inkheart, which I read as a young kid, and I loved that book so much. I thought it was so interesting and cool how it incorporated the characters going into a book. I just thought that was so cool. So this whole premise is really interesting to me. Face the Night came out on March 8th, and this is by Allan Lastufka. Adriana has a talent for bringing subjects to life, until she draws a rotting, mangled face instead of one of her subjects. She realizes that she has drawn the man who haunts her nightmares, but no one has seen him before. Adriana now is alone in pursuit of this figure who haunts her dreams, while battling her father, the mayor, who is fighting to have custody over her son. She needs money to save her family, but now the man is all she can draw. Her nightmares soon lead to violent outbursts, and she has to turn to strangers for help. In order to keep her son, she must unlock the mysteries of this strange face and uncover one of the darkest secrets buried in her small town. So this whole incorporating art and painting creepy things really reminds me actually of The Devil's Candy, which was a horror movie that I watched recently. And this whole concept of drawing creepy figures or someone coming to life from drawing is really scary. And also any kind of horror that incorporates dreams or nightmares always really freaks me out. One book that really freaked me out that incorporated this was Stolen Tongues. It actually gave me a nightmare and I woke up and I thought I was experiencing something in the book, which is rare for me. So let me know in the comments if kind of sleep or dream horror scares you too. A Black and Endless Sky by Matthew Lyons came out on March 15th. Brother and sister Jonah and Nell used to be inseparable, but ever since Jonah unexpectedly blew town 12 years prior, they have become estranged. Now Jonah is getting a divorce and they decide to drive across the country to try to reconnect with one another. When a strange accident happens to Nell at an abandoned industrial site, somewhere in the Nevada desert, she starts seeing terrifying visions and having otherworldly symptoms. As they continue driving, Nell begins changing more and more, and it becomes clear to Jonah that it's not really his sister anymore. They are also pursued by a mysterious stranger, who knows more about Nell's worsening condition than they let on, and the siblings desperately try to escape the desert before they are met with a violent, bloody end. So once again, this sounds like an isolated horror setting with a fast timeline. You know, they're taking this trip, they're trying to escape, and this sounds like it may be really fast paced and very creepy and sort of dabble into some maybe possession horror or some body horror. So I'm not quite sure what all this has going for it, but it sounds really intriguing. What We Harvest by Anne Fraistat came out on March 15th. This is a YA zombie novel about a disease spreading that takes place in a rural farm town. Wren has lived in a seemingly perfect American farm town called Hollow's End. Tourists come travel every year to see its miracle crops and see her family's beautiful farm. 5 months ago, the Quicksilver Mercury blight first surfaced, poisoning all of the farms. It began by consuming the crops, then the animals, and then finally the locals. Wren is one of the only surviving locals, and the blight has finally come for her. The only person she can turn to now is her ex, Derek, the last person she wants to go to. Wren and Derek decide to team together to try to save their hometown and their miracle crops, but they soon discover that miracles aren't always free. Their ancestors have a lot to pay for, and Wren and Derek are the only ones left to settle the old debts. When It Rains by Allan Gunnells came out on the 25th. So this is a novella, and the cover immediately grabbed my attention because it's freaking terrifying looking. One day at Friedkin University, a layer of strange clouds spread over the sky, and a mysterious rain begins to fall. The substance is slimy and strange, and it begins to spread across the whole country. People start panicking, not knowing what to make of it. Is it a natural, undocumented phenomenon or a chemical weapon? There are no answers, but factions begin to form between those who were exposed to the rain and those who stayed dry. At Friedkin University, the campus bookstore becomes a battleground. Is this man versus nature or man versus man? So this one is pretty vague on what kind of horror this is, but it has a really good reviews on Goodreads, so I'm really intrigued by it, and I want to read more horror novellas, and I want to own this one because this cover is just so stunning. All the White Spaces by Wilkes came out on March 29th. In the wake of the First World War, Jonathan Morgan stows away on an Antarctic expedition determined to find his rightful place in the world of men. Aboard the expeditionary ships of his hero, the world-famous explorer James Australis Randall Jonathan may live as his true self and true gender, and have the adventures he has always been denied. But not all is smooth sailing. The war casts its long shadow over them, and grief, guilt, and mistrust skulk among the explorers. When the disaster strikes in Antarctica's frozen Weddell Sea, the men must take to the land and overwinter somewhere which immediately seems both eerie and wrong, a place not marked on any of their part-drawn maps of the vast white continent. Now completely isolated, Randall's expedition has no ability to contact the outside world, and no one is coming to rescue them. In the freezing darkness of the polar night, where the aurora creeps across the sky, something terrible has been waiting to lure them out into this deadly landscape. As the harsh Antarctic winter descends, this supernatural force will prey on their deepest desires and deepest fears to pick them off one by one. It is up to Jonathan to overcome his own ghosts before he and the expedition are utterly destroyed. So this sounds like a creature feature, and also creature features in isolated snowy settings are some of my favorite books to read. I love Near the Bones so much. It was so good. I also love The Shuddering by Anya Alborn. I love that one as well. It's so good. So if this is at all similar to those, I think I'll really enjoy it. This next one I'm so excited to talk about because I have read it already, and it came out on March 29th, and this is My Dearest, Darkest by KAYLA COTTINGHAM. So this is a dark academic sapphic horror novel, and it is so good. It has supernatural elements, and I promise you'll like this one. At least, I hope you will. Finch has just transferred to a prestigious all-girls academy. But a few months prior, her family got into an accident that left her parents dead at the bottom of a river. Finch should have died, but something monstrous and terrifying would not let her. She doesn't know how she woke up after her heart stopped beating, but ever since, she has felt a constant pull to the school. One night, Finch and her friends accidentally summon a creature who promises to grant them all their deepest desires, but in exchange for a price, human body parts. So first, the creature seems to have good intentions for all of them, but soon her requests become more and more sinister. So I loved the setting of this book. It was so amazing. It had that dark academic setting and just the imagery and the visuals. I just fell into this world. I really loved it. Also, I usually don't like romance in novels, but I was really into this romance in this book, and I just really felt for all the characters. I highly recommend you check this one out. It also had some wonderful imagery and some really intense scenes, and it was so good, so I highly recommend this one. The Resting Place by Camilla Sten came out on March 29th. Once again, the cover for this is so intriguing. Eleanor walks into her cruel grandmother's murder and comes face to face with the killer. However, she has face blindness and doesn't recognize them. As each day passes, she becomes increasingly more anxious that the killer may be coming for her. Her grandmother has left her a house, a remote looming estate in the Swedish woods. However, it has housed a dark past for the past 50 years. A lawyer, her boyfriend, and her reckless aunt all go to the house looking for answers. But as they get closer to unveiling the truth, they'll wish they had never disturbed what rests there. Alright, so let's move on to the April releases that have come out already. And Then I Woke Up by Malcolm Devlin came out on April 12th. And this is a novella and another zombie story. A disease is spreading, and survivors arm themselves and roam the countryside in groups. It is possible that something different is happening though, and the disease is affecting how reality is perceived. Spence is one of the cured living inside a rehabilitation facility, and he is haunted by guilt. A new inmate challenges him to help her find her old crew, and he can't tell the truth from the lies. So this next one has a gorgeous cover, and this one is Woman Eating by Kohda, and it came out on April 12th. Lydia is hungry. She's always wanted to try Japanese food. Sashimi, ramen, onigiri with sour plums stuffed inside, the food her Japanese father liked to eat. And then there's bubble tea and iced coffee, ice cream and cake, and foraged herbs and plants, and the vegetables grown by the other artists at the London studio space she is secretly squatting in. But Lydia can't eat any of these things. Her body doesn't work like those of other people. The only thing she can digest is blood, and it turns out that sourcing fresh pig's blood in London, where she is living away from her vampire mother for the first time, is much more difficult than she'd anticipated. Then there are the humans, the other artists at the studio space, the people at the gallery she interns at, the strange men that follow her after dark, and Ben, a boyish, goofy-grinned artist she is developing feelings for. Lydia knows that they are her natural prey, but she can't bring herself to feed on them. In her windowless studio, where she paints and studies the work of other artists, binge watches Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and videos of people eating food on YouTube and Instagram, Lydia considers her place in the world. She has many of the things humans wish for: perpetual youth, near invulnerability, immortality, but she is miserable, she is lonely, and she is hungry, always hungry. As Lydia develops as a woman and an artist, she will learn that she must reconcile the conflicts within her between her demon and human sides, her mixed ethnic heritage, and her relationship with food, and in turn, humans. if she is to find a way to exist in the world. Before any of this, however, she must eat. All right, this next one, I'm gonna say it again. The cover immediately drew me in, and that is I Am the Ghost Inside Your House. This is by Maria Romasco Moore, and this one is coming out on April 19th. Pi is the ghost in your house. She is not dead, she is invisible. The way she looks changes depending on what is behind her. A girl of glass, a girl who is a window. If she stands in front of a floral wallpaper, she is full of roses. For Pi's entire life, it's been Pi and her mother, just the two of them, traveling across America. They have slept in trains, in mattress stores, and on the bare ground. They have probably slept in your house. But Pi is lonely, and now at 17, her mother's given her a gift, the choice of the next city they will go to. And Pi knows exactly where she wants to go. Pittsburgh, where she fell in love with a girl who she plans to find once again. And this time, she will reveal herself. Only how can anyone love an invisible girl? So this premise sounds really interesting. I've never read anything about someone who is invisible, and this looks like it's a YA book. The last book I'm going to talk about comes out on April 26th, and it is The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon. So this is a reimagining of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and it follows two timelines, which Jennifer McMahon always likes to do in her novels. So one of these timelines is in 1978 and one in 2019. In 1978, Helen, who is a psychiatrist, owns a renowned treatment center in Vermont. She is acclaimed for her work with the mentally ill. She lives with her grandchildren Vi and Eric and is just grand at home. One day though, she brings home a child to stay with her family. And the girl's name is Iris, and she is silent and feral and doesn't act like other children. Vi is excited to have a new playmate despite her unusual behavior, and she and Eric invite her to join their monster club, where they catalog all kinds of monsters and dream up ways to defeat them. In 2019, Lizzie is the host of a popular podcast, Monsters Among Us, and is traveling to Vermont where a young girl has been abducted, and a monster sighting has the town in uproar. She's determined to hunt down the monster because she knows monsters are real, and one of them is her own sister. Alright, so those are the most anticipated horror releases that have come out recently, both in March and now this month in April. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you very soon. Happy reading. Bye.